Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marc Geall. I'm a Senior Vice President within our HANA and Analytics business at SAP. Welcome to this Let's Talk HANA podcast. In this episode, we will discuss an extremely innovative and cutting-edge sports and wellbeing product utilizing SAP's Business Technology Platform, including, of course, HANA. This product, Protecht, is being applied to many sports that involve head impact or the risk of head impact, such as rugby, football, hockey, and boxing. I would first like to welcome our two special guests. Firstly, Chris Turner, CEO at Sports and Wellbeing Analytics, or SWA, and then Dan McNamara, CEO and founder Keytree, a Deloitte company. Chris, if you please introduce yourself and your vision at SWA that led to Protecht.
Yes, thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me on. So my name's Chris Turner, as you heard. I'm the Chief Executive of Sports and Wellbeing Analytics. Prior to that, I spent some time at SAP, but also I was Chief Technology Officer for Unilever. So the vision behind the Sports and Wellbeing Analytics, and specifically to the Protecht System that we've built, is really about how we could use real-time technology to help with what is really one of the biggest problems in contact sports, which is concussion, and its effect really on athlete safety and well-being. We really wanted to get something that could really have the ability to change that dynamic and do that very much in real time.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. Dan, please describe Keytree and your vision around platform innovation, and more importantly, how you became involved with Chris and Protecht.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So Keytree are a technology organisation, now a Deloitte business. Our focus is centred on SAP platforms and applications around SAP. And I guess we became most well known really is in the space of innovation and I guess sort of pushing the envelope, if you like. So I think when SAP became aware of the project, I think we were kind of the obvious partner really to get involved because, you know, we do work with low-level technology, right the way through the SAP technology stack. And I think we're used to problem solving. And, here's one of those fantastic problems to solve. And it massively resonated with me because I am a sports fan. I do follow rugby closely, which is where obviously, Protecht started. And also I have, children who play the game as well. So I was very, very interested. And I could see immediately that potentially here we had the right ingredients for an incredible solution.
Thanks for that, Dan. I mean, it's always great when you have a personal sort of engagement. Chris, I mean, I think it would be great for the listeners to understand maybe the history behind this journey, right? I mean, you mentioned ex-CTO at Unilever. You've also been a key member of the leadership team on the HANA side as well. So you know HANA exceptionally well. So maybe, talk a little bit about how you looked at solving this challenge. Was it a collaborative effort? And how did you think about the technology and HANA's use to solve this?
Thanks, Mark. I mean, yes, the journey here really does have its roots back at SAP when I was there, and where a fellow founder of Sports and Wellbeing, Mike Bell, and I spent several years talking to SAP's customers about the advantages of using the HANA system and specifically the real-time capabilities that it delivered to solve their biggest problems. Part of that conversation was often about using that technology to pull together disparate pieces of information from disparate sources and actually think about how you could deliver value from that information well ahead of any fundamental transformation that you may have otherwise had to undergo. With that kind of thought process in mind, when we set off and set up Sports and Wellbeing, we based a lot of the critical conversations that we were having on some friends of ours. And Mike's an ex-rugby player, and I've done lots of different sports. And what we were doing was having conversations with friends in those sports to try and understand what their biggest problems were. And most of the time, the biggest problem that kept coming back was this whole conversation around concussion and head injuries and traumatic brain injuries and what have you. And the question really kept coming back is there any way in which we can use the technology that we're much more familiar with to really fundamentally change the way that whole thing could be solved? So the problem itself is very easy to describe. You get whacked in the head, you have an injury, and people see that all the time. You only have to watch a rugby game or whatever it is, and you'll see something happen to somebody's head. So it's a very easy problem to describe, but when you try and solve it, it's a very hard problem. There are so many variables that you need to start thinking about. Dan mentioned a minute ago about biomechanics, and that clearly is a huge issue. So if I hit you at a particular speed with a particular force, that registers a certain speed and a certain impact. If I change your body position ever so slightly, that changes everything. So we have to understand that. Then in addition to that, you have to wonder about how you communicate that in real time from the sensors which we've embedded in mouth guards to the sideline. Now, who would have thought that dental fillings would have been a problem that we had to think about? I mean, it just doesn't come into your mindset. So, but it is, because the guy standing next to you who doesn't have fillings can transmit a signal much further than the person that's got fillings in them. So you have to get around all of those problems. And then how do you get that in a way that you can present that information in a way that can be actioned in real time? Really, it's a huge issue. I could just go on and on. But to your point, Mark, it has to be a huge collaborative effort, trying to bring all of those different skills, whether you're talking about biomechanics or whether you're talking about active sport, whether you're talking about the electronics understanding, the software, and actually trying to pull all those together. It's a huge effort in which we've worked with numbers of partners, Keytree, Deloitte being key, obviously, but Ospreys in the rugby Spence of Swansea University, and of course other partners that we've worked with like SAP to make it actually happen.
Excellent. I mean, it's always fascinating, right? We think about transformation and we think about the use of data, but we always apply it to this sort of business context. But, you know, as you're showing here, right, technology has such broad and varied usage, and, you know, the real-time capabilities of HANA, that ability to get very granular in terms of the data, responding even to the signals that you're getting is key here. And it's just as key in sport and contact sport as it is in business, right? So true transformation, albeit in sport rather than business. So Dan, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about the technology, the methodologies that Keytree would apply to deliver this type of agile solution, and really sort of talk a little bit about the role HANA plays in that solution.
Yeah, sure. So I think this would be the most classic example of an agile project, really. So here you have a challenge that essentially something that's not been done before. And I think you're at the edge of what's possible. So therefore, the approach that you take is extremely important. Working out that actually, you know, it's not going to work, or that you choose a direction that you can't follow. So it is very agile. It's also agile from the point of view of experts essentially collaborating in quite a small space. So that makes it, you know, less complicated. You know, you're looking at somebody for each component, somebody who's is a real expert in that field. And I think for this kind of project, that is really important. And what that translated to is, well, you know, within 3 months, we built a prototype. And now you would say that the prototype was a little bit clunky, because here we have a mouth guard, and, you know, we had to, you know, design the electronics for that mouth guard, and the electronic solution would have, you know, accelerometer, gyroscope, you know, antenna, battery, etc. So it's reasonably intrusive, you would think, to a mouth guard. And I guess, you know, initially, but we got it working, and, you know, we proved that networking and sort of the end-to-end around it quite early. And then after that, we're really able to refine the solution, and that is around the applications, it is around the mouth guard, you know, it's obviously the algorithms, the understanding of the biomechanics. And then it's also something that, you know, moves as it's, you know, been used, you know, live in professional sport for some time now. You know, clearly the solution, you know, continues to evolve, because it is, you know, essentially a field of research. And so in terms of tools and technology, in order to deliver the solution, well, you know, there are definite technical challenges, obviously not least, you know, the hardware, the mouth guard itself, but also the environment in which it's used. So I guess the extreme example might be a stadium filled with 80,000 people, and you've got 30 players on the pitch, all in, you know, essentially a melee, or not, you know, you wouldn't get 30 in a melee at one time, but, you know, essentially there's an awful, you know, lot of moving parts, you know, quite literally. And what it means is essentially we have kind of the ultimate edge device here that sits pitch side, and that edge device runs HANA. And obviously HANA is the primary engine here for the solution. So this is where the predictive algorithms are running. Essentially we are measuring impact and using HANA to provide a risk weighting, based on that player's activity. So that's sort of your ultimate edge, because here we can't just rely on a cloud solution, because network and connectivity to the internet cannot be guaranteed, and obviously also the solution is geared to use by the public, so essentially used anywhere long term. So we stream from the mouth guard to our edge device using radio frequency. We've got HANA applications running pitch side, so that the coaches and medics see real time what's occurring. And then we have a sync to the business technology platform where, then we've also got the longer terms aspects of this. And that might be, that you're able to, assess the longer term history of players, or take a more of a team centric view. And then obviously, a level above that, the analytics around, what this might mean more generally for the sport. So that's how we used the platform and the technology. And I think what I would say is what you need when you're doing something like this is a tool set and a platform where everything is in sort of close proximity. And we didn't have the time or the resource to develop anything that we didn't need to develop. So all the work has to go into the application and the solution. So you need a set of building blocks around that make that easy, in such, really quite a difficult scenario.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. So, basically in summary, right, there was the predictive element of HANA, that ability to leverage a single platform that provided a wide range of use cases, right, to be able to build out the applications, to collect the data, to process the data, to provide those real-time insights, right? So it's a pretty broad set of use cases and capabilities that you've utilized.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that would be application development tools. It's obviously HANA. It's also analytics cloud as well, where we're visualizing, a lot of the information, real time. Excellent.
So maybe Chris, you can expand a little bit. One of the areas you sort of touched on before was, this started off as preventative, but ultimately has evolved to also be performance oriented. So, can you talk a little bit about whether that was by design, whether that was something that you were able to do once you saw the value in the data sets that were being collected from this, or whether it was, as you were able to basically measure and monitor the impact of Protecht over time, that you could see that the scope was just broader than maybe initially expected?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question, actually, because it's not intuitive. The irony is that it's all of the answers that you just gave all wrapped up into one. But I think the trigger for that was pretty clear. When we talk about professional sports, and specifically when we talk to the coaches and things that are in those sports, they really actually only have one goal, and that's winning. So whilst athlete safety is clearly a critical component of their role, let's not kid ourselves, winning is what they're all about. So the question is, how do you get them to buy into something where their personal objectives are all set around winning, and yet you're trying to sell something that's all about welfare and safety and so on? And the answer is that you actually have to do both. And what we found is that the big challenge that you've got here is that the data itself that's coming off this is brand new. So when you start to talk to people about what you're getting off of the mouthguard, it's very much a question of, so I've hit you this hard that often. And the question then becomes, how do you translate that into a message that can be revealed to the coaches and so on? And I think the reality is that just telling people how many times a player was hit and how hard doesn't tell you a great deal, but actually it tells you everything, because there's a massive amount of insight that you can draw from that. And most of that insight we found is completely groundbreaking and is actually leading to fundamental changes in the way clubs train and prepare their players. And so examples of that could be, we understand exactly what happens in a drill. can you make them safer whilst improving their performance and retaining their performance benefits? Well, here's a simple example. In rugby, take a jackal drill where you've got a couple of guys jackling over a ball carrier that's lying on the floor, and the objective is to pass the ball out as quickly as possible. What we found when we were doing something like that was that the guy on the ground was the only person taking the hits. Well, that was fascinating because that was the guy on the ground who was put there so he didn't get hit. So by changing a few things, without changing the drill, we managed to eliminate all those impacts. So therefore, you can start immediately to get a benefit from doing that. We're now starting to find out, for example, that we're able to measure contact load. What does normal look like? We can actually start to make very, very clear statements about what a normal load of a player looks like. And we've got clubs now that are looking at that load, and they're actually starting to say the players had 80% of the load that we'd like to have over a course of a week in a game. Therefore, I will dial down their training, changing the way in which they fundamentally do it. And that is a massive, massive change. I can't estimate how important that kind of thing is. We can look at how do you bring players back from no contact? Because if you're suddenly taking a rugby player in the COVID example that often comes up, these guys have been off for weeks, or if not months. They've demasked, they're going back into training, and all of a sudden they're going to be clattered. And we've seen examples of that in the NFL where the guys have had a short preseason, and they've come back and they've had massive injury spikes. Well, what we're finding is that we can actually simulate and predict how to bring those players back from injury, back to their contact loads in a safe way, by specifying types of drills and so on, and the volumes of drills, the intensity of those drills to do over time. So there's a massive advantage to the club. So what you're really then doing with the coach is giving them a performant, rested, fresh squad for the game to maximize their opportunity to win. So there's lots and lots of things like that you can do. So it's really come out of that balance of being able to sell into a club the performance benefits whilst driving it through the welfare benefits, is what we call performance through welfare.
Excellent. I think it's fascinating, right? How you start with a particular problem to solve, and then through collecting this vast amount of data that HANA is enabling, it enables you to almost, change the question, right? And once you get those insights, realize that you can make quite dramatic changes to areas that maybe haven't seen a lot of innovation in the past. It's pretty fascinating. So maybe Dan, right? You alluded to it, right? The breadth of the capabilities that there are with HANA, right? And I think that some people associate HANA with just a database, right? Where in fact it's a transactional and analytical platform. And what you have been able to do is to take those data sets, analyze those data sets, discover key insights out of those data sets. So can you talk maybe a little bit about how you approached that and why HANA was the right solution for that?
Well, first of all, the challenge is having clean data to begin with, I think, as it is on sort of almost any technology project. And so we've got this scenario where you've got the mouth guard is the perfect instrument here because it's in the center of the skull. And typically, any movement that we can detect, therefore, is meaningful. Whereas if we were approaching this with a device that could move sort of independently of the head, that almost makes it, impossible to do. So sort of fundamental principle there. But actually, there's still an awful lot of things that can happen, as we discovered, that can make that complicated. You've clearly got to know that the mouth guard is in the mouth, now via a proximity sensor. We have to declack the information that is not relevant. So, rugby players, for example, may actually take the mouth guard out, put it in their sock or something like that. And so there's quite a bit of work just to sort of set this up so that it's a robust data set, okay? But then what do we need? Well, we need something that is able to process information very, very quickly against a large data set, so sort of in-memory performance, flexibility in order to do that, extremely important. As the data becomes more sophisticated, the algorithm and the model can simplify. And what we end up, driving towards is understanding where something is unusual, and that's what dictates risk. So if we're measuring an impact and, we can tell that this is unusual, it is not in the normal range, essentially, that's where it comes out. But in order to get to that, there's a huge amount of modelling complexity, has gone into this over a number of years, around the algorithm and ability to, to change it, to sort of, to try it against the data set, etc. So you really do need a platform that is, flexible and supportive in allowing you to move quickly and deploy quickly. And then, of course, the other element is user experience. So it has to be very easy to set the application up because it's used in really high pressure environments, and it won't be used at all if it's not easy to do, because it just can't happen. No one's going to sort of delay the start of a game or a training session because, the technology is not working. And also, there is very much the human element of people needing to kind of buy into this because, it could feel quite invasive. The experience has to be good. So you need an application technology that helps you kind of do things really, really quickly, deploy that really, really quickly, and make it really consumable for the end user. And it's sort of right at the extreme end of that. And so therefore, when you get into the visualization, that has to be highly, highly performant. Everything, has to just, make sense, right information shown in the right way. And clearly there's design elements to that as well, but, you can't do that without, having the right tool set to work with.
So maybe finally, Chris, it sounds like it's been a roller coaster journey already over the last couple of years. Maybe you can sort of give us a glimpse into maybe what the future holds for SWA or what the future holds for Protecht.
Sure, thanks. And I mean, I think the thing that's really important to understand is that a lot of the conversation has obviously centered around the mouthguard. That's because that's been a real challenge. And it's at the end of the day, the mouthguard for us is just a data collection tool. And the real value in this is about the data and the analytics of the data, how you get the value out of the data, how you interpret the data and how you use it. So a lot of where we are and where we are going is all based around the use of the data and how we can use that data to make things better for people, particularly at the moment at the elite level, but long term, that's something that we're looking to bring down into the community game across lots of different sports. And I guess that's the other thing, is that what we're finding out of this is that the learnings and the insights from the data are transferable across pretty much every sport you can think of, but specifically within contact sports. I had a conversation just this morning, actually, with someone about using it in diving. And that's largely because people see stars when they hit the water from the high 10-meter boards. And of course, this is a waterproof data capture device, so we can use it for those sorts of things. So there's lots of different ways we can do it. But the focus for us at the moment is very clearly into rugby. And we're working very now across a number of other sports, but specifically in boxing and soccer and so on, to really take it forward. So longer term, as I say, it's to get it down into the community games, but that's where it is. But I would stress, I think, if there is a takeaway from this, it's all about the data at the end of the day, and therefore having the right tools to collect, analyze, and get that data in front of the right people at the right time is what it's all about.
Excellent. I mean, data is the new oil, as they say, and I think it's you've certainly demonstrated that here. So with that, I'd like to basically thank both of you for these fascinating insights and the use of HANA to solve some really fascinating sporting challenges. I'd also like to thank our audience today for joining us and listening to this Let's Talk HANA podcast. So with that, I'd like to sign out. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Dan. And thanks to everyone who's been listening today.